One of the things that I hear quite a bit when it comes to nutrition, especially sports nutrition, is this idea of I feel good. And I have this conversation with athletes all the time and individuals all the time. This idea of versus good versus great. And when you're young, it's a little bit easier to feel good about your training or about your recovery because you're young and you tend to bounce back from anything. I mean, I had an athlete that I used to play college ball with that he'd eat Burger King right before he went to practice, and I don't know how he did it even back then, but he did, and he felt good during practice. Remember, there's a better, there's good, and there's great. And even when you're young, you may be getting by with some really poor nutrition practices, and you're just a good athlete, and you're eating enough that you're getting by with feeling good enough during your training. But there is another level. Even as we age, we tend to be satisfied with how we feel and think, well, I feel good right now, or I'm good enough. As we older, it's a little bit easier to detect when we feel awful. But there's another level, and it's called great. And when we're older, we can feel good to great if we've been feeling awful for a long period of time. And it has to do with simply the way we approach our diet and our training. And so, I want to just release a little video to remember there's another level more than likely. If you're not trying to move as close as you can to being optimal, remember there's a balance between optimal and practical. If you're not trying to move as close as you can to being optimal, then you're probably missing out on the next level of how you can feel, how you can recover, and how good your training can be, because you're being satisfied and not appreciating there may be another level. And I'm not trying to be judgmental when I say that. I do the same thing. If I'm not careful, I feel okay. There's another level, and if I would just prepare a little bit more, whether that's through my nutrition or a better structured training plan, I could feel great while I train, and then better results. It's not surprising, right? If you feel good during training, you work harder. If you're recovering better from your training, then you can work harder the next session. And that's at the end of the day what we're trying to do, is trying to string together good training sessions no matter what the goal is. If you feel great, your training sessions are going to be better, and so is the outcome of those training sessions. So just keep in mind there's a difference between good and great. Really ask yourself and be honest with yourself, even if you're a young athlete. Do I feel great? And the answer may be no if you're really honest with yourself. I posed that question to some elite kayakers a couple years ago, giving them a talk, and for them it was they're super young, and so they always feel good. They were elite athletes, so they somewhat feel good all the time. But to them, this idea of another level of feeling great, and thinking about looking at their nutrition, they were missing out completely on that level. If you look at elite athletes, and I've worked with some over the years, it's one of the things that they're really good at. Is certainly they're gifted, but they also distinguish themselves from their peers because they understand there's another level, and they pursue that level. And I'm talking about elite athletes here, but this could be, again, something with weight loss. It could be, how you're losing weight is not the right way, and the way you're manipulating your macros isn't effective, and so you feel terrible. You could actually feel good and even great while you're losing weight. It's possible. At least during the major times in which you're maybe cutting. Certainly if it gets really deep in a cut, it might be a little miserable, but even then it could be less miserable if you're doing things correctly. So just a little bit of a video again on mindset. Make sure you're not being satisfied with good, that you're moving towards great, and understanding there is probably another level that you're missing out on.